Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Space with me, Steve Hargrave, where we'll be taking you through all of this week's news in the world of arts and entertainment. Here's what we're dishing up for you today.
Explicit, X-rated, or just plain boring? We try to understand why the world is so obsessed with Miley Cyrus. Steve Coogan leaves Alan Partridge behind to tell us about his quest to bring Philomena to the big screen. Banksy takes New York by storm, but is this really art? Downton Abbey star Gary Carr joins us to talk about the show and why he's backing a campaign to save his old drama school. And we'll blast off into space for a look at this week's big movie releases.
But for now, we'll keep our feet firmly here on the ground. And remember, if you do want to get involved, you can get in touch with us on Twitter @SkyTheSpace. Now let's take a quick look at the stories that everyone's been talking about this week. And first, there's a big Hollywood surprise as Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones announced they are to separate after 13 years of marriage. Or are they? The couple have had a tough time in recent years, with Michael battling throat cancer and his wife being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Zeta-Jones says it's over, but today Michael confused the matter somewhat by saying it's all been blown out of proportion by the evil media.
I have a crisis at home? No, I think the press has a crisis. We are fine. My wife and I are fine. We take a temporary separation, but the press, it gives you stuff to write about.
And from relationships gone bad to just plain bad, it's the new Princess Diana film.
I don't know how to contact you.
Well, I'm like most people. I've got a mobile. Actually, I'm not like most people. I have 4.
Yeah, this is apparently so bad, even Daily Express readers aren't very keen to see it. Critics have taken great joy in sabotaging the biopic, which some feel isn't really in the best of taste. Naomi Watts even walked out of a TV interview, but luckily we got to her and the director just before that. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the sound of damage limitation.
Like you said, poetic license has to be taken, and you know we've gathered as much information as we can from reliable sources, but you know we weren't in the room with Hasnat and Diana, so you can't say exactly when and where and what happened on every moment.
Now, a man with no need for damage limitation is Tom Hanks. His new film, Captain Phillips, is already being tipped to bag him another Oscar nomination. The true story of a Somali pirate hijack opened the London Film Festival this week. He admits the film has condensed the story down, but you know, the movies and life is like a box of chocolates.
You know, a movie is kind of like a big bar of soap. You know, you use it a lot and you get down to this little sliver, but that little sliver is still good soap, and that's what we have.
Now, lots of classic acts are reforming at the moment. My favourite, the Backstreet Boys, of course. There's also Boyzone, New Kids on the Block. And now the Young Pretenders, Monty Python, are getting back together. Now, they all swore they'd never do it. Now, look, here's Eric Idle talking to Sky News a few years ago.
It's a bit like saying to the Chelsea football team of the 1966 season, what about if you all came out and played again? Wouldn't that be fun? Well, no. Half of them would be dead and the other half would be fat old. It's a nostalgic question. When you think about it for a minute or two, it's a dreadful thought.
I wonder what changed their minds. They do all have huge legal bills to pay, of course, but I imagine it's the pure love of comedy. Regardless, we do welcome their reunion. Music news now, and next week's charts will be like stepping into a rock and roll time machine.
I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. You should have heard the knocked out jailbird sing that rock.
Yes, both the Beatles and Elvis Presley have new albums out and will go head-to-head in the charts. The Beatles with the second volume of their Live at the BBC album, and Elvis with yet another greatest hits compilation. It remains to be seen who the British public will be all shook up about the most. Now, they'll also face stiff competition from Lady Gaga's new album, but in the meantime, she's been too busy planning to blast off into space. The, how shall we say it, slightly eccentric star will fly on the Virgin Galactic Shuttle in 2050 to become the first artist to perform in orbit. Last night she got into practice by wearing the first ever flying dress to promote her upcoming record. I might wear one of them myself next week. Theatreland celebrated its finest talent this week, with Dame Helen Mirren again proving she really is rather good at playing the Queen. She won Best Actress at the evening's Standard Theatre Awards for her portrayal of the monarch in Peter Morgan's The Audience. Helen was as humble as ever.
It's actually Her Majesty who's winning the award and not me. And I did feel very much doing the play that the response to the play was as much a response to that person, that woman, that extraordinary woman, as it was to my performance.
The other big story in Theatreland is that Sherlock himself is about to take on his biggest case yet, playing Hamlet. Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch is in talks to take on the role in the West End, topping what's been a busy few years for him, starring in the Julian Assange film Fifth Estate and the upcoming 12 Years a Slave. Benedict has yet to confirm if the Hamlet rumour is to be or not to be. And in a galaxy not so far away, sci-fi fans have been trying their best Jedi mind tricks to land a part in the new Star Wars films. Producers have held open auditions to find 2 wannabe Skywalkers or Han Solos. We sent the Spaces team down to see if the Force was strong with this lot.
They came with one common goal, not to restore freedom to the galaxy, but to land a role in the new Star Wars film.
May the Force be with you. It's worth the wait, it's worth the wait. There's an opportunity, you know, if you want to get out there and be seen, you've got to do what it takes.
Don't get cocky, kid. Me's a Jar Jar Binks.
They probably don't think anyone would dare try.
And this is what they all aspire to. When Mark Hamill tried out for the original Star Wars, he was a relative unknown. This audition, reading lines along with Harrison Ford, landed him the role of Luke Skywalker.
I don't think anybody imagined it to be such a big hit as it was. At first we thought it was Obi-Wan Kenobi and all these weird and wonderful names. The kids could get it quicker. Children pick these things up much quicker.
With 2 parts up for grabs, 1 girl and 1 boy, they expected queues for the open auditions. They perhaps didn't expect this many hopefuls, though. It meant for some, rejection came from a man with a megaphone.
We cannot take any more auditionees today, so please don't waste your time and get wet and cold.
For others, though, the hours waiting in the rain was rewarded.
I have a call back at around 5:30 or something, so which is very exciting.
If I had a lightsaber, I'd use it here to keep me warm.
Whether a publicity stunt or a genuine attempt to find undiscovered talent, most didn't seem to care. They all felt the Force was with them and that they might just be the new stars of Star Wars.
Well, good luck to all of those wannabe stars. Now, this Sunday, these stars of the small screen will gather for this year's Emmys in Los Angeles to celebrate what's been another massive year for TV. Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad are the frontrunners, and there is, of course, plenty of British interest as well. Let's go live to LA. Sky's Greg Milam is there in a very pink Hollywood for us. Greg, gearing up to the Emmys, it's kind of just proving that it's been another golden age of TV this year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and you mentioned Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad. They are hugely popular shows. In fact, it's almost a bit like the old days where there are shows that it seems everyone is talking about. It's fueled a lot by Twitter, of course, and all of the big nominees this year are shows, not coincidentally, that do very, very well on Twitter. Breaking Bad, in fact, was getting something like 16,000 tweets per minute during one episode. So that golden age, you're right, there's a sense of that. And it's interesting also that the big movie studios are starting to see the writing on the wall and taking a lot more interest in TV, which maybe shows you that that's where the interest is and certainly where the money is.
Greg, some huge American series that you mentioned there, but of course, as always, there are quite a lot of British interest really when it comes to the nominees this weekend.
Yeah, there are. There's the usual suspects of Downton Abbey, reminding us just how popular Downton Abbey remains in the US. When the First Lady's a fan, you know that you're doing something right. So the nominees from Downton Abbey, Hugh Bonneville, Michelle Dockery, Maggie Smith, of course. Also Damian Lewis up. The problem for the Brits this year is that they run into those big beasts of American TV. And for example, the Best Actor category with Damian Lewis and Hugh Bonneville, they're up against Kevin Spacey, Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad, John Hamm, Jeff Daniels. A feeling, I think, that it's going to be a big American night. But the Brits are here, and that recognition is important, even if they're not going to be among the winners on the night.
Greg, thanks very much for joining us. Enjoy the event on Sunday. Now we're talking about, of course, one of the big nominees in the big shows, a big British interest that will be riding high there, Downton Abbey, of course. We're joined by one of the stars of Downton Abbey, Gary Carr. Lovely to see you, Gary. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
What's it been like, because you're in that last series that's just ended, what's it been like being a part of such a major show?
It's fantastic. You definitely see a change in your profile as an actor. I mean, it rises considerably. But also, I think what I love most about Downton, and I'm sure most actors will say the same thing, is the quality of production. You know, it's very, very high, and that's so evident when you watch it back as well. It's a great production to be part of. Great writing, great scenes, great characters.
Well, everyone's been on the edge of their seats, wondering about your love affair in the show this series, which captures everyone's attention. Let's have a quick look at one of the scenes from the very last show, where we kind of left it not really sure what's going to happen.
Sure.
I hope we're brave enough for this.
Of course we are. Isn't it time people knew that there are bigger and better values than the mean-spirited ones they live by?
Does Lady Grantham know you're out for the day?
I'll telephone, but it won't matter as long as I'm back for dinner.
We're happy to wait and see. You're not really going to tell us, I doubt, are you, about what's going to happen?
No, I'm not. I can't. I don't spoil it for the fans. I mean, the thing with this story is it's very interesting because, you know, we're dealing with a certain time in UK history and where race was, you know, a lot of things happening in terms of tension and race relations and conflict and racism. And I think, yeah, a lot of people have a lot of questions, but I think it's very well done. I just think you have to wait and see where it goes.
And you get to play some great jazz, which I'm always a fan of. So
massive fan of jazz.
Very happy with the jazz. You're also here because of, I guess it helps really, the celebrity status that you get. You're able to lend your name to projects such as the one you're doing at the moment, which is for LAMDA, your old drama college, which is going through a massive fundraising sort of big procedure to try and raise some funds for renewing the place and looking at the students and stuff. How important is it really that you're able to support something like this for LAMDA?
It's extremely important. Well, I'm a massive supporter of LAMDA. LAMDA supported me in a huge way, and I'm probably only here because of LAMDA.
It's this fantastic historical British institution, really, one of the top 5 drama schools in the whole world. Has David Suchet came through it, Maureen Lipman's come through it, Benedict Cumberbatch, of course, Thomas Sutherland even came over and trained, didn't he? I mean, do you think this is a problem to try and get the funding to the arts? Is this a continuing problem we're always trying to face?
Yes, and what's hilarious is that the arts is responsible for so much. LAMDA is responsible for so much, not just in entertainment, but in just like UK culture as well, and well beyond the UK also. LAMDA is it's home to many of the entertainment industry's pioneers and innovators as well, people who work on an international level. So I think people don't think about that. They just see the glamour of it, and they see films, and they see brilliant performances, but they don't know that schools like LAMDA are responsible for those actors and for those performances and for that education.
Lovely to see you today. Thanks for popping in. Good luck with the LAMDA appeal. And yeah, well, fingers crossed for the relationship in Downton.
Sure, thanks a lot.
We're backing you, okay? We want to see this happen.
For sure.
We want to see this happen.
We'll do a follow-up.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's time for a break now, but when the space returns,
we'll be hunting down a Banksy bargain on the streets of New York and asking if Miley Cyrus is clever or if she just has the cleverest PR team on the planet.
hello, you're watching The Space. Coming up...
Dr. Stone requesting faster transport.
We have to go, go.
Kennedy reports meteorological...
George Clooney and Sandra Bullock get weighty in space. That's to come. But first, let's attempt to get our heads around the cream of this week's big cultural ramblings with the help of our guest, Paul Stokes from Q Magazine and Sophie Hayward, who writes for The Guardian and The Times. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. I feel like I have to issue a slight apology in advance, first of all. You know what's coming, but it's the M word. Miss Miley Cyrus, who yet again has been hogging all of the newspaper headlines this week. We're getting a bit used to it, but first of all, let's have a look at what she's been up to most recently of all. This is the MTV Awards. This is Miley Cyrus accepting an award.
Miley Cyrus rocking out!
You know, I couldn't fit this award in my bag, but I did find this. So, thank you guys very much.
So that's Miley, not wearing very much. She'll catch a chill in the Amsterdam air wearing that. But that was Miley accepting that award in Amsterdam, of course, and smoking a, how should we say, rolled up cigarette. Where do you guys feel about Miley and what she's doing at the moment? There's a lot of controversy about her.
Well, I was watching live on telly when this happened, and I ran to Twitter to see what all my friends and journalists who I follow were saying about it, and about 2 people seemed to have noticed, because I think the Miley shock fatigue had just set in, and no one could sort of bring themselves to care massively that she had staged another shocking revelation on stage.
She seems to be a sort of person who lives her life as a viral. Everything she does is the idea you're supposed to go on about it. So, be it smoking indoors, which I imagine probably caused more trouble smoking indoors, let alone whether it was a Dutch cigarette or not. And or like the dress when she came out of the spaceship and there was the little Britney, I think the character was, who was slapping her, and the twerking at the American version of the awards. It just seems to be like she punctuates everything by going, look, you must talk about this, and then when you actually get down to the substance of it, when she does an interview, she hasn't really got a lot to say.
Do you think it is then? It's just kind of a disguise? Because there's all these complaints, would it be from parents who are saying, she turned 18. Is this the sort of role model that kids really should aspire to be, looking up, wearing outfits like she does and doing what she does?
Well, I think a massive part of her mission at the moment is that she was Hannah Montana. She was this child star, and she said recently, I want to kill Hannah Montana stone dead. So everything she's doing is to prove that she's sexual, she can take drugs, she's you know, she's doing the whole sex rock and roll triumvirate quite decisively to kill that child star. And I think she's quite glad that people are saying it's not safe for children, because that's her point. She's saying, I'm not a child. But only an 18-year-old could sort of scream that quite so loudly.
The sad thing is, though, when she performed at the MTV Awards, the performance of Wrecking Ball in front of the video screen with her crying would have been really affecting if she wasn't wearing that leotard. Yeah. And I think the music's actually got the potential to cross over.
It's a great album.
Yeah, I don't think she needs to back into Robin Thicke or whatever.
It's good pop. She's just laying it on a bit thick. It is interesting how everyone's been talking about it. We caught up with Sir Paul McCartney this week, and even he had something to say about Miley.
She's like only 20 or something. She's just having a go. Someone said to me, the world that a lot of those people like Miley live in is noise. It's all noise. And they've got to get above the noise. So they've got to do something. So you will see people doing something that's sort of, I think it was only mildly shocking.
So mildly shocking, Paul McCartney says.
Like saying you're bigger than Jesus, perhaps.
Yeah.
Mildly shocking thing.
You know, I guess
they started it.
There is that thing, isn't there? You go back to Elvis and his wiggling hips.
Yeah.
It was all very sort of to do with the times. There's different amounts of shock level.
Yeah, I mean, hip wiggling was massively shocking, yeah, and it is relative.
We've moved on.
I do think for her next stunt she might be, you know, having keyhole surgery live on stage, or beheading a chicken in a voodoo ritual.
What's quite interesting is at that award you had Katy Perry, who sort of done that herself, you know, I kissed a girl and I liked it, has now reinvented herself as a demure sort of slightly. So that will be her next shock, I think, she'll probably turn up in a burqa or something, you won't see anything.
But that's like, Christina Aguilera did the same thing when she did Dirty, and she was very much kind of this kind of slave on the floor and oiled and naked and chains, and then she came back with I'm Beautiful, which was all about how she was this sort of sweet, gorgeous princess. So that was her shock factor. So yeah, Miley could do the same thing.
I'm trying to maintain a conversation while Miley does this in the background. Let's talk about Lily Allen, because she's got a new single out called Hard Out Here, which is kind of her answer to all of this controversy surrounding these pop stars. This is Lily's new single.
You're not a size 6 and you're not good looking. Well, you better be rich or be real good at cooking. You should probably lose some weight, because we can't see your bones. You should probably fix your face or you'll end up.
So this is Lily kind of very evidently poking fun at both Miley and a lot of the other songs that are around at the moment. Robin Thicke's video as well. What do you think of Lily? Is this more what kids should be seeing or want to be listening to?
Well, I think she's trying to, like Paul McCartney said, she's trying to respond to that noise, but because of the noise, she has to trade in that noise. So she's sort of saying, oh, your video's full of naked women twerking their bodies around are silly, and all your bling stuff is silly, but she's not been able to actually not do it. You know, her video is full of it, ironically or otherwise, it's there. I think it's quite a mess of a message, to be honest.
Is it a good song, Paul?
I don't think it's a good song at all, actually. I think it really distracts, you know, it uses the B word, if we're going to have to use that, and loads for no apparent value. I think the trouble with Lily's provocative songs, she did it on the last album, she comes out with something about drugs, and she's very good at sort of throwing a firecracker and then running away. She's got no answer to it. When she's been challenged about, is this video exploitative or potentially racist, she doesn't really have an answer because it's half-baked. And I think the song, you know, what would have been better, rather than wasting time on this video, was actually write a decent song.
Harsh words for Lily then. It ain't the John Lewis advert.
That is funny though, those balloons that spelt out.
There is this,
that
which probably
did make me laugh very much.
Let's move on then from controversial pop to controversial art. This week has seen the end of Banksy's month-long residency in New York. He's been walking around New York, doing his paintings on the side of buildings, surprising people. A whole load of people have been running around New York, desperately trying to find all of Banksy's tags and his pictures. What do we think about the Banksy phenomenon, though? I mean, the fact that he's gone to New York to find this sort of new audience. I mean, is it still cool? Is it still relevant? Is he still making a point?
Well, I was living in LA a couple of years ago, and he did a lesser version of this there. He went to LA and people were spotting him and taking photographs and chasing him around town. And everyone there thought it was massively exciting and edgy and spoke to me as a Londoner. Oh my God, Banksy's here. And I'd been living in East London for years. I was so bored of it. And I think now he's gone to New York, and again, he's found a new audience of people who find it edgy and exciting. And I do think we're all a bit sick to death of it.
I think this thing of doing it over a month and turning an entire city into an installation is really interesting. And I think, you know, it's obviously brought a lot of people who perhaps don't care about art into that world a little bit, and what I find really interesting is the way that by doing what he does, he kind of questions how much art is actually worth. Like, one of the things he did in New York was he had a stall, and he didn't say it was him, and he sold stencils, and they didn't sell many because everyone didn't really think anything, and those are worth an absolute fortune now. And there were people who, when something he'd drawn on the side of their building, were installing shutters over the artwork or taking it down so they could. And it's really interesting because there's so much graffiti in New York, there's so much graffiti in London, so it intrinsically has no more actual value, you know, in terms of the amount of paint used in the stencil than any other bit of graffiti in New York, yet he imbues it with that. And I think at a time where people are spending millions of pounds on Francis Bacon and Andy Warhol works, I think the questions he asks about why is this worth this just because I happen to do it is really interesting.
Can he continue to do that though? I mean, one of the works that he did was to get a picture out of a charity shop, and he sort of painted a Nazi just sat on the edge of the lake. There it is there. And he put it back into the charity shop, actually, and they managed to sell it for quite a few $100,000. I mean, is that... I guess he's using it for a good cause. We can't really question that. But how long can he question the notion of what is art? Or essentially, is that going to be his career forever?
It is just stunt after stunt after stunt, is it? It's quite similar to Miley, and it's quite similar to what we've seen Lily doing. His whole career at the moment is, look what I can do, look how I can mess with it. But I'm sort of struggling to... I mean, does anybody actually want that picture on their wall without the story and the hoo-ha and the branding? He's basically made himself into a brand, which is... I'd love to know what he does with all the money as well. I mean, yes, you're saying this is being given away, a charity shop is selling it, and he was doing these stencils that were going for sort of tens of dollars, but he has also now made a lot of money from his sort of, you know, wearing a hoodie, go around the streets, doing his revolutionary art. I'd love to know what he's doing with it all.
I think it's interesting. We live in an era now where the artist is more important than the artwork. Because I think if you go back to, say, Renaissance art, where people are like the ambassadors, Holbeins, putting in, you know, images of a skull, that is as dangerous as that is, you know, in terms of a stunt in the art world. But Hans Holbein was known for being a brilliant portrait painter. Banksy's known for being, we don't know who he is. And I think it's interesting. We you know, you look at Damien Hirst, all these sort of artists at the moment, it's all about the cult of the artist. It's almost, you know, are we going to get to a phase again when actually the work perhaps stands first and who the artist is second? I doubt it, because, you know, in order to promote yourself across the media, it has to do a stunt like this. But I think that he's kind of locked into this now. He has to be the artist first and the work, sadly, is second.
Well, we'll desperately try and get him on this show, if we can. I mean, who knows? We might have him on this show. It might well be one of you two already. Well, it's yet to be proven.
I shared a flat with a guy from Bristol years ago who told me that in the early days he had done Banksy's PR.
Everybody...
When Banksy was starting out in Bristol in the skate scene, he'd said to my friend Matt, who had some contacts, can you help me get this show on the road? Can you tell people about my work? So,
and he dines out on that conversation now. Everybody knows Banksy. Guys, well, thanks very much for chewing through both those stories for us this week. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us. In a moment, we'll check out what's on at the cinema. But we felt a new British film called Philomena deserved our very special attention this week. It's based on the true story of a woman whose baby was sold by nuns to America. We sent Richard Suchet to speak to the cast.
I did not abandon my child.
This is the heartbreaking story of Philomena Lee, an Irish woman who fell pregnant as a teenager in the 50s and was forced by her Catholic convent to sell the child. It was the journalist and former government spin doctor Martin Sixsmith, played by Steve Coogan, who persuaded her to go and find her son after 5 decades apart.
What you think is happening in the film is that Martin is helping this vulnerable old Irish woman who's desperate to try and track down her son. And you think that's what the nature of the film is going to be about, but in actual fact, you know, it's about her saving him from his own cynicism.
I was going to ask you if it would be possible not to use my real name when you write the story. What about Anne? Anne Boleyn. It's a lovely name. Well, somebody had that.
It's Philomena's almost inhuman ability to forgive the unforgivable that humbles Sixsmith. And it's that dramatic arc that makes the film so powerful, tragic and funny.
I feel like the Pope.
I think she's a really remarkable person. And I hope we've done her justice.
Co-writer Steve Coogan says the film is not an attack on the church, but for the real Philomena, it's an opportunity to draw attention to the plight of others.
By telling my story, I mean, it was finding him eventually. I did find him eventually, and then maybe it would help a lot of other mothers in Ireland and people that kept it a secret, like myself, and maybe it would help them.
I'm getting scared. Now we're getting closer.
Judi Dench already has an Oscar to her name. If the critics are to be believed, this performance could land her a second one.
Richard Suchet there reporting for us on Philomena. Our film reviewer Jason Solomons joins us now. And the real interesting breakthrough almost, or revelation, is Coogan, isn't it? A co-writer, and also plays it very down.
Well, he's just suddenly got on this role. I mean, start of the year he was in The Look of Love. It was okay. Alan Partridge still sort of dominated that character. Then sort of playing Alan Partridge in Alpha Papa became the way that he got rid of Alan Partridge. He played him so well in that movie, and it kind of carried all the way, that when he became Martin Sixsmith in this movie, Partridge was nowhere to be seen, and that's a lot to do with playing opposite a great actress like Judi Dench and having a great director like Stephen Frears, who just made him take it down a notch. And it's the best thing Steve Coogan's done. The whole project is the best thing Steve Coogan's ever done. It's brilliant.
And it does feel like a great week, really, at cinema, because we move on now to another already very well-received film, and this is Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, of course. They head into space, and things go terribly wrong.
Explorer, Dr. Stone requesting faster transport to Bay Area. Explorer, do you copy?
Explorer, permission to retrieve Dr. Stone.
Your go, Guam. Houston, this is Explorer. Copy.
All right.
We've lost Houston. We've lost Houston.
Look, we need to get the hell out of here. Need some help there, man? No, don't wait for us.
It's stuck.
Man down.
Houston,
Man down.
The interesting thing about this is it's kind of that event movie. Already people are saying the 3D is just astonishing.
It's the film I'm sending most people to see, and the film I'm getting, thankfully, for a film critic, the most enthusiastic responses afterwards from. They say it was fantastic, we loved it. I say go and see it in IMAX and 3D, and I don't normally kind of push the technology, but this film is all about the technology. Look, it's in space. They didn't go to space to make it. They made it in Soho, in fact. I mean, it's not really space.
Thanks for that fact,
yeah,
Jason.
yeah. But I mean, while you're in it, you think, my God, they've been up there. It looks right. Earth looks right. I mean, you could even see the right countries down there and the weather patterns. I mean, it's an extraordinary movie. I think it's the movie of the year for me. I mean, it just about tips it over Philomena for me. I think it's an extraordinary piece of work that kind of might change cinema forever. You kind of end up gripping the seat like that, having your fingernails digging in. Like, it's speed in space, isn't it? It's both the character and the concept that you love, and it's both brilliantly done here.
And I don't want to give anything away, but you do spend a lot of time grabbing things to hold on to.
You're like this.
Ducking.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Don't throw that at me.
So from a big event movie to more of a character piece, this is, I guess you would say it's Jude Law's attempt to go, look, I can do something different. I'm not the guy you think I am. This is Dom Hemingway, Jude Law, Richard E. Grant playing kind of buddies, bit of an ex-con on the run, trying to get redemption sort of thing. Here's Jude in action.
I'm just stating what I'm stating.
Stop stating what you're stating.
I'll state what I want to state in whatever state I want to.
State it again, I'll knock your teeth out.
Knock my teeth out. I'll cut your ear off.
I'm a peasant at heart, a petty serf with nice hair and a strong liver.
So this is Jude Law going, I can put on a different voice and talk like that, and I could be a gangster and a bit of a bad boy. But is it convincing? Does it work?
No, it doesn't at all. I mean, it's a bit of a disaster, really. I mean, he's trying to do the Don Logan thing from Sexy Beast, played by Ben Kingsley. Ben Kingsley was Gandhi and Don Logan. He can do that. He's a brilliant actor. Jude needs to kind of stay in his comfort zone. He's tried to push it here. It just gives a sort of shouty pub theatre-type performance as this gangster Dom Hemingway. Half the problem is not just his. I don't really know what this character is. He's a safecracker. He seems to work in a bus depot. He seems to kind of be a nut job as well. He's violent, but he's also brilliant. I mean, I don't know what he's supposed to be. Then he's tender because he's got his daughter. The film is a bit of a disaster, to be honest.
So basically, Jude, stick to the other roles.
Yeah, I think so, or just, you know, do something else.
He does get his bottom out, though, so, you know, maybe there is an audience for this somewhere.
His bottom is mildly more hairy than his head, actually, in this film.
Well, on that note, Jason Solomon, so thank you very much. We'll bring you more hairy bottom-related movie reviews next week. Good to see you, Jason.
Nice to see you, Steve.
Thanks very much. So that's all for The Space this week. Don't forget you can find out who won big at the Emmys on Sky News on Monday morning. And you can catch up with us anytime over on Twitter, the iPad, or skynews.com, and on demand. Next week, then.
It should be one heck of a lucky ticket. We tell you how you might be able to win a Picasso. And Kate Blanchett joins us to tell us why working with Woody made her blue.
Very intriguing. We'll see you then.